ahead and turn this over to Dustin Hargis, our Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life, and allow him to introduce members of his team. Dustin?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. First of all, thank you all for being willing to hop on the call here with us today. I know, especially as the weather got nice here today, I'm sure there was competing interest on what you were wanting to be doing. So thanks for spending a little bit of time here with myself, the rest of IFC and Panhellenic leadership, as well as some leadership from the chapters across campus. We're excited to be able to have a chance to connect with you all, to be able to just have some time talking about what fraternity and sorority life at Ashland has looked like over this past year. I'm sure we all completely can understand that it has been far from a normal year. And so I'm sure a lot of people are curious of how has that impacted fraternity and sorority life here at Ashland. I'm sure some of you have some more firsthand interaction with some of the chapters and have had some insight in that, but we want to really have a chance to go in depth and cover what that's looked like. So like Jeff laid out, we're going to go over just a quick presentation here. It's going to be myself. I'm going to turn over and introduce our Panhellenic president and our IFC president here in a second as well. And the three of us will give you a quick rundown of where we've been at. If you have questions, feel free to ask questions throughout the program. And we're going to try to mainly use the chat box function for those questions, just so we can have, so we're not trying to have too many people try to talk over each other. So if you have a question, throw it in the chat box. One of us will get to it. If it's something that pertains to what we're covering and talking about in that moment, we'll talk about it then. If it's something, we'll wait to the end of this kind of presentation, go through some questions there. Once we get done with that, we'll go to the breakout rooms for each of the chapters. Myself, I'll be still here in the main room. So if you have questions that maybe don't still directly pertain to your individual chapter, you want to hang out in the main breakout room here and chat, I'm more than happy to do that. But enough about me. Or enough about kind of just the overview. I just wanted to kind of jump into kind of who the presenters are going to be here for today. So my name, Dustin Hargis. I am the Director of Fraternity, Sorority Life and Student Leadership. It's a mouthful, I know. This is my 4th year here currently at Ashland University. And so enjoyed a few years here. I'm originally from the Ohio area. I'm a graduate from Baldwin-Wallace University for my undergrad. And then got my master's degree at the College of William and Mary out in Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm a brother of Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity, if anyone's familiar with some of the different organizations that exist. But we also have 2 guests here with us that are going to be able to talk a little bit directly about their experience leading our fraternity and sorority community. And so I'll turn it over to our Panhellenic president.
Hi, everyone. So as Dustin said, I am the president currently of Panhellenic Council. I am a biology and toxicology double major. So this is my 3rd year here at AU. And my respective chapter is Alpha Delta Pi. And I just want to say thank you all for taking the time out of your day to come here and join this call. And I'm really excited to see how it goes.
As Destiny and Dustin both just stated, I am IFC president. My name is Kavasier Garrett. I am a psychology major and my minor is sociology. I'm a junior here and I am a member of the Phi Delta Theta fraternity on campus. Once again, I just want to thank you guys for all coming out on this beautiful Sunday. I hope you guys enjoy this call.
So I just want to give a quick brief overview of what we're going to cover today. So touch a little bit about, if you haven't interacted with the community in a few years, you might have been getting some emails and saw fraternity and sorority life. Well, might have been questioning, what is that? You probably have heard Greek life a lot. And so talk a little bit about that transition from fraternity and sorority life to Greek life. Talk a little bit about the impact of COVID, give some updates on recruitment academics, hear some counsels specifically from each of the council. We want to talk a little bit about our Day of Giving coming up this week with you guys, and then we'll transition to the breakout rooms. So if you haven't seen or haven't heard within the last few years, this actually happened in summer of 2018. Ashland University transitioned from Ashland University Greek life to Ashland University Fraternity and Sorority life. The logo on the left here is our old logo. The logo on the right here is our new logo for our community. And so as a community, when we talked about that had that conversation and made that decision to make that transition, here are some of the things that kind of really made us want to make this switch. First is a return to our organizational roots. We are founded as fraternal organizations, fraternities and sororities. And so we really want to get back to kind of why we existed, what our roots were. We wanted to really also step away from that negative connotation that goes along with the term Greek. When you hear Greek, especially to younger students, there's an immediate thought in your head of what that term means. And it's usually not the most positive connotation that goes along with it. A lot of the negative stereotypes that you hear about fraternities and sororities can be associated with that term. And so we wanted to get a little bit away from that, the use of that as well. Also, just to continue to modernize, not all chapters that are part of fraternity and sorority communities across the country use Greek letters. You have groups like Acacia, Farmhouse, Triangle that don't use any Greek letters. And so it's a little bit more encompassing of all of the different social fraternities and sororities across campuses. And so that's why it aligns with kind of just the current trends in higher education. And so this allows us to just stay up to date with communities. Or if you look at communities across Northeast Ohio, whether that be some of the other schools such as like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, groups like that, all using the term fraternity and sorority life. And so we wanted to just stay up to date with those. So, Ashland University Fraternity and Sorority Life, when we did a complete rebranding, we wanted to rewrite our mission statement. And so this is what the students came up with. We had a work group of fraternity and sorority leaders that came up with this mission statement. Ashland University Fraternity and Sorority Life, rooted in tradition and shared values, seek to develop a supportive community of brothers and sisters that is empowered to lead and serve, creating engaged citizens of the future. We really want to put some emphasis on leading and serving and keep getting our members ready to lead in the communities that they're going to lead here on forward. And so that's a little bit kind of what went into our mission statement and kind of went into the rebranding, the switch from Greek life to fraternity and sorority life. So just wanted to real quickly breeze over that. I know that for some of you, that's old news. You've heard that 100 times, but for everyone else here on the call, I want to at least bring you up to speed kind of on those changes. And so let's start with kind of one of the biggest first things that really impacted our year this year. COVID has impacted communities across the country greatly, and so no different here at Ashland, and whether that be just our general student body or specifically our fraternity and sorority community. And so what were some of the changes that our community had to go under? We'll talk a little bit more in depth about some of these, but all of our chapters as of last March had to switch to virtual chapter meetings. They were doing their chapter meetings over Zoom for the majority of them. And it wasn't even until this fall where we were able to start allowing, this past fall where we were allowing, some execs to come together for those meetings. So the exec may have been together, but the rest of the chapter was still zooming in on the call. And so all of the business meetings for our organizations were running over Zoom. Posed a lot of different difficulties, especially when it came to new member education, when it came to, conducting initiation. I know each national organization took a little bit of a different approach on how they're going to went about initiating their new members. Some of them hosted a large initiation ceremony that their new members could Zoom on to that was being hosted by the national office. Some did just small intimate group initiations where it was just basically the new members and the couple officers that had to run the ceremony. It varied chapter to chapter, and so that might be something you want to ask your specific chapter when we get to the breakout. This past spring, Greek Week 2020 had to be canceled. Greek Week is something that I know our community looks forward to year in and year out. When we sent students home last March, not to return the rest of the semester, we weren't able to adapt anything for Greek Week there. So that was canceled. Fraternity and Sorority Life Honors, our award banquet where we recognize chapters of the year, advisor of the year, student, like fraternity man, sorority woman of the year. That had to be completely moved online. We did a simple, some of you may have saw it on our social media, on our Facebook, on our Instagram, where we were able to recognize the winners of those awards through that. So we're still able to recognize the hard work, but it definitely wasn't still the same impact. This past fall, we had to cancel Lip Sync 2020. A lot of you, I'm sure, enjoy watching Lip Sync year to year, getting a chance to come out. We had plans to record Lip Sync and to do it virtually through like a live stream of the recording. But as we got into November, when Lip Sync happens, that's when cases that both on campus and across the state really started to hit a peak. And so due to directives from the governor, we couldn't bring together the groups to be able to record lip sync. And so for the first time in, I want to say about at least 20 years, lip sync had to be canceled, unfortunately. But this is where we can start getting to the positives. So EGLS 2021. So a lot of you may be familiar with EGLS. It's our Emerging Greek Leadership Summit. It's our annual opportunity for our new members to come together to dive into leadership development, learn a little bit about themselves. This past year, we were able to still do this in a hybrid format, which I'll talk a little bit more here in a second. But those are the FSL changes. What did life at Ashland even look like on our campus? And so when we mention things like EGLS or lip sync, all of our events this past fall had different size restrictions and capacities on campus. And so our student groups couldn't host an event with more than 50 students in person. And that the room still had to fit that capacity of 50 plus people. And so a space like Redwood on campus could fit 50 people, but if you're using, say, conference rooms in the student center, you're capped to more about 30 people in that space. And so I know that made it difficult on a lot of organizations to host various events. Masks had to be worn at all times on campus. Organizations couldn't have food at any of their events. And so we'll talk a little bit about recruitment, but that definitely impacted the recruitment aspect as well, especially on the fraternity side. So events had to look very different, and I mean, life on campus in general just looked very different throughout the fall semester, let alone last spring. Last spring, when we completely switched to online classes, online meetings, all of our chapters had to quickly adapt and figure out how can we do any form of brotherhood activities, any form of sisterhood activities completely online. And so our chapters have really been through a lot, but have adapted quickly to those changes. We talked a little bit about hybrid learning there. Spring break this spring semester, we canceled spring break and instead put in 2 flex days for students across the campus. Obviously, spring break being potentially a time for higher risk behavior, more likely for students to travel and then potentially bring COVID back to campus. And so that was the reason the decision was made to cancel spring break and put in those 2 flex days. But that's had an impact, obviously, on our students and kind of the morale throughout the semester, and just kind of the general energy the chapters have. Our campus has implemented various forms of mass and surveillance testing. And so at the tail end of the fall semester and throughout the spring semester here, we've been doing surveillance testing where we've tested 20 to 50 students each week just to kind of get some idea of some potential rates of positivity on our campus. We also did mass testing at the beginning of this spring semester here. So in January, as students were returning to campus, everyone had to get tested to know kind of, okay, where are we starting with as a campus? What's our kind of rate of positivity? The results back from that first mass testing in January are actually really positive. We were single-digit % positive rates, which was really good, especially compared to kind of where the state of Ohio was at that time. But as we move forward and look ahead, one of the things that we're looking forward to is potentially vaccine distribution. Ashland University has been approved to be a vaccine distribution site. We don't have any information on when that'll actually happen. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the news, the various restrictions on who is eligible for the vaccine is continuously changing here throughout the month. And so as soon as we have more information for that for our students, they'll be notified, but that's something we're very hopeful for, especially as we look ahead to the fall semester. So want to specifically touch on 2 of the different aspects about some of the events that big events that happen on campus. And so EGLS, I alluded to that a little bit before, our Emerging Greek Leadership Summit. So more or less, this is what EGLS 2021 looked like. And so if you're familiar with EGLS, it's usually a completely in-person event. We break out into small breakout groups of about 7 to 8 new members that are led by 2 facilitators that are upperclassmen members of our community. They get to work with each of the groups through various topics. This year's theme was flexible leadership. And so we covered different aspects of flexible leadership. So normally on the right here, you see a large Zoom call with each of those breakout rooms. Normally we're all together there when we're doing our large sessions. But instead this year, each of the small groups were placed into a separate room across campus. We never came together as one large group. They just would zoom into one large call whenever we did a large group session. So as the picture on the left is a little bit of an example of what each group may have looked like around campus. So we still got to work through a lot of the topics that we wanted to work through and cover a lot of good information, but at the same time, we weren't able to quite get that same, experience of meeting all the different new members within the community. And then, obviously, the next big impact that we haven't had a chance to touch on is recruitment. And so recruitment has looked radically different this year compared to years of the past. And so this is where I'm going to turn it over a little bit to Destiny and to Cav to talk a little bit respectively about fraternity recruitment and sorority recruitment.
Okay, yes. So I'll talk a little bit about the sorority recruitment side of things. So I actually was the VP of membership for Panhellenic Council last year. So I was kind of the one behind the scenes with everything for recruitment, along obviously with the rest of Panhellenic Council. But so recruitment did look a little bit different. Typically we have we have rounds in person and whatnot, but we did it differently this year to where when P&M signed up, they were able to submit a video of themselves, and this took place of the first round of recruitment. So they took a video of themselves, like answering some interview question type of things. And then chapters also made informational videos, and that was in place of night one. So then all of the P&Ms got to watch those chapter videos for night one. And then leading into day two, that was where after chapter or P&Ms viewed the chapter information videos, they got to choose who they wanted, like their selections for the night, for the round two. And then, so that one was a typical like invitational mutual selection process, except it was on Zoom. So we did Zoom parties, and we had to account for obviously some technology issues. So we added in an extra round for that. And it did look a little bit different, but it worked out pretty well. And then for round three, which is typically preference, we first planned for recruitment to be in person, and then we did a hybrid style. So the original plan was supposed to be round one and round two virtually, and then round three for preference in person, but we were following NPC's mandates and kind of the recommendation. So we decided to move round three preference virtual. So that one kind of took similar idea of round two, where it was just virtual parties. It followed the same kind of schedule and outline as it would be in person. It was just obviously on Zoom. And then obviously the recruitment guides played a large role in making sure the P&Ms were knew where they're going, like what to do, and making sure they got their rounds and the Zoom links and everything. And then from preference, they got to make their selections for their final selections and got to sign the Maraba and stuff like that. And then bid day, it was more of a hybrid type of situation. So as you can see with the picture, we had all of the new members line up after they accept their bids. And they lined up on there, and we did a little reveal for the whole community on Zoom, where the P&Ms hid the shirt behind their back, and then they pulled them out to show what chapter they were going to. And that was a live streamed event for the whole community to watch. So that way it was still, there was still some unity in there. And then from there, they went to their chapters, and the chapters had their own virtual celebrations for the day. So each chapter got to kind of choose how they wanted to do things for that, for the virtual type of bid day activity to get everybody included. And then obviously continuous open bidding still remained after formal recruitment. And yeah, so I don't know, Dustin, is there anything else that you feel should update about for recruitment? I mean, like do you have like, I don't remember if it was a slide or not, but like the numbers, like kind of situation
we'll jump into the numbers here in a second. We'll switch it over here and switch it over to Cav to give a quick brief overview of the IFC recruitment process. And then we'll kind of jump into a little bit of the numbers and engagement side of things after that. So go ahead, Cav.
Okay, so on the IFC side, our recruitment process looked obviously a lot different than typically. So we had a lot of events this semester. or in the fall during formal recruitment. They were smaller and more spread out around campus. So we used different locations to do our formal recruitment. Obviously, we did a lot of our events outside so that we could socially distance at the time. When it came to signing our bids, we, instead of having just like the mass groups we would usually have, most chapters sent like their exec board, so there's a smaller amount of members to congratulate the members who signed their bids. There wasn't much more like detailed and planning into that. We just tried to stay as safe as possible and keep the groups as small as possible when it came to doing our recruitment events. It wasn't as detailed as the Panhellenic side. So I don't know if I'm missing something, Dustin, you can fill in for that.
No, I kind of hit it on the head perfectly here. The biggest change on the fraternity recruitment side is chapters were forced to be a little bit more creative in what type of events that they were looking to do, because we were still able, that was one of the luxuries about our campus compared to a lot of campuses across the country, is we were still in person. We still were having groups able to do things in person. It just had to be on a smaller scale. And so it forced groups to be just a little more creative with what they were considering to do, what they were looking to do. So that was the biggest change there. The sorority recruitment side, and for those of you that are familiar with sorority recruitment, it was a very radical different change than what things have been done in the past. The structure itself is still the same in the sense of parties. You know, we're still going to get to meet the different chapters, have a lot amount of time with each chapter, but just moving that entire process to a virtual Zoom setting was very different. And so when it comes to some of the actual numbers, and so the next 3 slides are going to give 5-year look at things, but I'll really jump into kind of how things looked this year. And so on the Panhellenic side, when it came to formal recruitment, so recruitment for the sororities looked radically different when it came to formal recruitment, but in terms of the number of women that were able to join the community, it looked very similar to previous years. Formal recruitment, each chapter got about 12 women through the formal recruitment process, but all of the chapters were essentially able to recruit after the formal recruitment process and use continuous open bidding, which is what allowed us to be able to maintain kind of our similar community size. On the fraternity side, this is where we definitely saw a little bit more of an impact just from recruitment across the board. And so this slide might be a little misleading in terms of what the actual average chapter sizes were, especially when it comes to the fraternity recruitment side. And so we'll talk a little bit about why that is in our council update later. But as you can see, our average chapter size on either side kind of has looked the same. But our new members for the fraternity community and the sorority recruitment, and this is where you can really break down and see kind of where things fell. So on the sorority side, we had 65 new members join the sorority community this past fall. With roughly about 50 of those being through the formal recruitment process and 15 of those roughly being from the informal process, you can see how that's greatly different than, say, the fall before that. We had about 65 women join through the formal process and only about 7 women join informally. And so the women this year, it very much shifted from so many of them joining formally to more of being a mix of a good chunk, the majority still joined formally, but there's still being a good amount that joined informally as well. The men, the numbers kind of have fluctuated over time, but as you can see, fall recruitment wise, when it came to numbers, while we were a little bit lower than these last couple of years, we were hitting a nice trend there of continuing to increase. There was a little bit of a dip, especially compared to the year before in the amount of new members. The reason, obviously, for that average chapter size to go up was that we went from 4 fraternities on campus to 3 fraternities on campus, which we'll cover a little bit more here in the IFC update. One other other way we want to kind of take an approach of looking at this is what % of the student population is part of a fraternity or part of a sorority. And so it's one thing just to see kind of the raw numbers, but compare that to the rest of the campus body, because not only did we see obviously a little bit of a decrease in recruitment, nothing significantly, we also did see a dip in enrollment at the university. As you can see here, we're definitely really proud of kind of the trend that the sororities have been able to hit. The numbers have continuously stayed the same about roughly how many women are in the sorority community, especially over the last few years, 236, 239, 235, really consistent there. Especially, we love seeing that consistency when we saw a little bit of a dip in terms of the enrolled the number of female enrolled students at the university. So even though from fall 19 to fall 20, we saw a dip of almost 200 women enrolled at the university. We still see essentially the same number of women engaged in the sorority community, which is a really nice aspect. On the fraternity side, it's a little bit different. There wasn't as much of a dip in terms of the men, still 130 less men enrolled, but we saw a much larger dip in terms of the amount of men in our community. A lot of that was due to, as you saw the last slide, recruitment numbers looked pretty similar. We had a lot of students that over the course of the summer, either whether it was from graduation or transferring, or I mean, COVID could have definitely played an impact of students not returning to the university. That's really where we saw the bigger impact on the fraternity side. It wasn't necessarily on the recruitment front, but much more on the retention of members within the organizations. But as you can see, as a whole, for the most part, especially our total percentage of the student population went up from fall 19 to fall 20. Our sorority percentage went up from fall 19 to fall 20. Our men went slightly down there. But as we talk through the IFC, the council update, we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to look to try to continue to increase that number back up. So these are only 3 of the different data points when it comes to recruitment numbers. There's a lot of different things that we can look at, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of a snapshot of a picture of what recruitment looked like this past year, what our numbers looked like, and kind of realistically, at the end of the day, while we were pretty satisfied of where we were finishing up when it came to recruitment at the end of 2020. We'll be interested to see continue on how kind of COVID continues to play a little bit of an impact into our recruitment process. As Destiny touched on a little bit about what we were planning for in terms of fall 2020 with the virtual or the in-person or the hybrid. We're doing the same thing for fall 2021 right now. We're planning for potentially a in-person sorority recruitment or a hybrid recruitment or a virtual recruitment, where we're coming up with plans for each of those. So we're ready to roll with whatever it may look like. We're hopeful that it'll be in person and things are pointing towards that direction, but we just want to be prepared for whatever that may look like when it comes to the fall. So that was the recruitment side of things, and wanted to give you just a quick brief overview of the academic side of things. Obviously, our students are here to be students first. Our members are here to be a student, and we want to make sure that they're still performing well academically. So I wanted to just give you a quick snapshot of where our community is at when it comes to the academic side of things. We are really happy to see over the last 5 years, we continue to see for the community as a whole, positive trend of our GPA continuing to rise. Specifically, we see our sorority communities continuing to thrive academically, with even specifically fall of 19 hitting a 3.3 average, which as a whole community is really phenomenal. And so we put in also the numbers that we usually try to compare it to. And so as you can see, our members continue to perform right at or up, usually just above the all campus averages. And that's what we really strive for as a community. So excited to be able to ensure that our students aren't only developing outside of the classroom in terms of their leadership skills, again, the opportunity to socialize with our organizations, giving the opportunity to do service and give back to the community. We still want to make sure that they're performing in the classroom. And so these numbers continue to reflect that is what is happening. One other aspect of our academics is Order of Omega. And so we want to get a chance to cover, sorry, was it covered up there? Oops, sorry here. Can you guys see the all undergraduate category there? If not, you might need to move the string of cameras there. Sorry, I saw that was in the chat. So if you move your cameras slightly over, you can see the all undergraduate numbers there. But I'll also read them off real quick. So it's a 307. So from 16 to 20, straight down, it went 307, 315, 315, 317, 317. So to give you an idea of what we're comparing numbers wise there. So as we alluded to, as you can see, the all Greek average is very consistently above or at that average. So as I started to talk about, Order of Omega is our Greek honorary. We were able to induct a new class this past year. I'm able to do our induction in person, which was we were very excited about. We're up over 450 plus lifetime members as part of Order of Omega. If you don't know what Order of Omega is, it's a honor society for the top 3% of the Greek community when it comes to academics. We have an application process in the fall where sophomores, juniors, and seniors can apply to be a part of. And then they also do some various service activities across campus. And so here I'll turn it over now for some council updates. And so I'll turn it over to Destiny here to cover a quick update on things that the Panhellenic Council have been focusing on this past year.
Yeah, so as some of you may have seen recently in the news, some incidents involving hazing. Our community takes hazing very seriously, and we are strongly against that. And we wanted to make that clear, so we took advantage of taking our social media and spreading the word about hazing prevention. We also, our standards chairs on our councils have sent out emails to the whole community about hazing prevention and awareness and understanding what is hazing, and just kind of giving a whole overview of kind of that whole aspect. And then social media updates, we have been trying to utilize our social media a lot more. So our social media chairs have been trying to use it as a tool to reach out to more people beyond our community, and that also involves the hazing awareness. And we've been doing senior spotlights, obviously sharing other chapters events, and she's also been having members take over, like have a takeover of the Instagram where they can spend a day kind of showing the life, a day in the life of their chapter member, or like at like a philanthropy event. And we're just trying to utilize our social media as much as we can. So hopefully that's something that we can kind of use more of, and especially when it comes to alumni outreach, that is something that we are trying to kind of gather more about and work more towards that. As far as upcoming events for Panhellenic Council, we have Greek Week, which is actually coming up later this month, towards the beginning of April. It'll take place before and after Easter break. So as some of you may remember, Greek Week in the past has just been a fun time for friendly competition between the community. And this year, obviously with COVID, last year's Greek Week got canceled because of COVID. So this year, we obviously had to make quite a few adaptations to suit COVID protocols and making sure we are making our campus as healthy as possible and as safe as possible. So we've kind of geared more towards kind of events that aren't as, I guess, physical. So for example, we have laser tag. Now we have Minute to Win It. Just kind of, those are some examples of some of the adaptations we've made from taking, say, soccer, and instead we're doing games and activities similar to those, just so that way we're making sure we have follow the best protocols that we can. And that also includes, we're not allowing I guess spectators, like an audience, while the activities are happening. We will live stream it, but it's only going to be those who are participating in the event are going to be the only people in person. So it won't be that big of a thing. And we've also have utilized study tables, and we're also sponsoring a blood drive with Greek Week to help chapters kind of get points for that, while also making a difference in the community outside of Ashland. And there's also a donation drive for like clothing. That's all going to go to charity. So we're doing as much as we can to outreach past the FSL community and the AU community. Other upcoming events are the FSL and Black Student Alliance social event. So we're really trying to spread the word and more about awareness for diversity and equality. So we are partnering with the Black Student Alliance to have a social event, just a time where we get to know each other and just kind of enhance those bonds between us. And then the other thing coming up would be FSL Honors. So that might look a little bit different. I don't know if Dustin, you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we're excited to get FSL Honors back in person. We will potentially have limited capacity in terms of how many people the chapters are able to send, but we're excited to be able to still have our annual end of year recognition banquet in person. It'll be Sunday, the 18th at 7 o'clock. And so I'm really excited to celebrate the achievements that the chapters were able to make through 2020. It was not an easy year for them. And so we really want to be able to appreciate all of the hard work that they were able to do. And from here, I think we'll turn it over to Cav to touch a little bit about things on the Interfraternity Council side of things.
So if many haven't heard, we, IFC and FSL, we had to close the TEAC chapter. That was something, Dustin, if you want, sorry. If you want to further explain that, that would be great. Just
yeah, so many of you may have received an update or a press release or newsletter from us touching on this, but at the end of last semester, going into this semester, we closed down the Tau Kappa Epsilon chapter on campus. This has been something that has been a couple of years coming now, and it's not due to anything judicial wise. It is in terms of lack of membership, and so membership numbers continue to dwindle over the years. And it actually got to a point this past fall semester, they were down to 3 active members on campus, and so it just wasn't feasible any longer. And so at that point, we just, in conjunction with the national office, decided to close the chapter. But there is communication happening on the IFC side about where we go from here to grow our community back to 4 chapters. And so, Cav, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so like Dustin mentioned in his last part, we have formed a committee, an expansion committee, to start the process of expanding a 4th chapter on campus, just to get the chapters back to even. We are also, we just met last week, all the presidents and those who also needed to be involved. We're going to reconvene in the fall to just further the process. Obviously, it's a longer process, so updates will be sent out as things come out. We, on the IFC side, we have also been pushing the mental health initiative. So we've asked each chapter and their presidents and their execs to just open up the discussion more about mental health and fraternity life, just so we can discuss, try to discuss more about how COVID has affected us, and just try to eliminate some of the stereotypes that men can't talk in front of men about mental health. We have also reconfirmed our promise to new members about our hazing awareness and just how we don't haze at Ashland University. That is pretty much the updates from the IFC side. If I'm missing something, Dustin, feel free to jump in, but I'm pretty
just
sure.
To expand a little bit more about kind of the process that we're looking to pursue to bring a 4th chapter back, who that chapter may be, it may vary. We'll extend invitations to national organizations across the country. So it could still be an organization like TEAC, or an organization that has existed on our campus in the past, but it also could be an organization that has never existed on Ashland's campus in the past. This process, like Cav alluded to, will take some time. We'll reconvene in the fall. But the earliest we probably would be seeing a new chapter expand onto Ashland's campus at the earliest would probably be fall of 22, spring 23, fall 23, somewhere in that range. And so this is a multi-year process. It's something we want to make sure we're doing right, make sure our community is in the right spot to move forward with this. But we truly believe that 4 chapters is the right number on our campus, and so want to work to be able to work towards that. So a question also came through here. Thanks, Matt. NPHC updates. And so if you are one of our more recent alumni, or maybe an alumni that was here in the 80s, 90s, NPHC, these are our historically African-American fraternities and sororities. NPHC stands for the National Panhellenic Council. And so you might also hear them referred to as the Divine Nine. You have groups like Alpha Phi Alpha, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta, Phi Beta Sigma, just to name a few of them. And so we have been in works to try to be able to bring this as an offering to our community alongside our IFC experience, alongside our Panhellenic experience. We were moving along pretty quickly. COVID definitely played a large impact into kind of the progress we were making. We did sign on to a citywide chapter for Alpha Phi Alpha. So citywide chapter, what that usually means is it's multiple campuses from an area that sign on to this charter to be able to say any student from our campus can join this chapter, but they're also going to be part of this chapter with students from other campuses. The reason you usually see this is because NPHC organizations tend to be a little bit smaller, especially on smaller campuses. And so for campuses that might not be able to support a full 8, 9, 10, 12 person chapter, it still allows members that want to have that specific experience to join. And so this citywide chapter for Alpha Alpha Phi Alpha is the Cleveland chapter. We're on this charter alongside schools like Lake Erie College, Cleveland State, Baldwin Wallace. And so if we have students that come to us say, hey, I'm looking to have the NPHC experience, we're able to direct them there. So we were able to get that. We also are potentially looking to have Alpha Kappa Alpha, which is one of the NPHC sororities, potentially may look to do some recruitment on our campus in the spring semester. We do have a charter with them alongside Oberlin College. And so us and Oberlin College are signed on to that charter. And so we're hoping to get the ball rolling again there to get things rolling and for an MPHC experience. We don't have any concrete details on that yet, but that's kind of where we stand when it comes to that experience. So that's kind of the update in terms of our chapters. Last little update I wanted to give you here before we get a chance to go to breakout rooms is our annual Day of Giving. And so unfortunately last year we weren't able to have our Day of Giving because due to COVID, but this year we're excited to be able to have our Day of Giving again. It's actually coming up this Thursday, March 25th. And so love for you all to get involved, whether it be sharing some information about your experience as part of the fraternity sorority community here at Ashland. We know our community will be reaching out, providing some of the stuff about their current experience. And also, obviously, if you have the opportunity to donate back to continue to offer more to the experience of the members in our fraternity sorority community, we would love to have that. And so mark your calendars this Thursday, March 25th, Day of Giving. If you would like more information about that, you can definitely go on to, we have a Day of Giving website that you can go on to that has a lot more information. Also, just be on the lookout for Thursday from on social media accounts from us on the main Ashland University social media accounts. We'll be providing a lot more information there. So with that being said, I know we kind of rambled on for a half hour straight here, but is there any general questions that you have for us as a community, as leaders of the community? If any at all, feel free to put them in the chat. Like I also mentioned, I'll be hanging out here in the main room. And so if a question comes up and that you want to ask, feel free to kind of be able to ask that. Let me go ahead and stop the share here. But if not, we're actually going to now break out into breakout rooms. And so how this is going to work is once I open up all the breakout rooms, it's going to list all of the chapters on your screen. Just simply select the chapter that you're a member of, and you'll go straight to that breakout room. Once you're in that breakout room, there'll be a leader from the current undergraduate chapter that'll be in the room to help kind of cover and talk a little bit about where the chapter is at currently, give you a little bit of an update, answer any questions that you may have. But again, if you have any questions at all, feel free to just hang out in here, ask them. Also, when you're done in your breakout room with your chapter, that will be kind of the end of our presentation here today. So for one last time, thank you guys so much for taking the time to be here today. I really appreciate getting the chance to talk about kind of where we're at as a community. I know you're all here because you really enjoyed your fraternity and sorority experience here at Ashland. And so we're glad to be able to offer a little bit of the insight of, okay, what does FSL at Ashland look like in 2021? So thank you all so much for taking your time. I will open up the breakout rooms here. If you have any questions or issues getting into a breakout room, just hang out here and we'll help you get into there. So I think you all should have the options now. If you are having any issues, if you just turn on your mic and say something too and let me know your chapter, I can assign you to the respective room as well.
80 Pi.
For Mary?
Mary Warboys Turner, yes.
There.
And Connie Dennis, 80 Pi.
I will get you there.
I'm Phillips, Delta Phi Theta.
Yes.
Hey, Dustin, can you take me to Alpha Phi, please?
Sure.
Me too, please, Dustin.
No problem there.
Send me to Kappa Sigma, please.
That was Scott, right?
Yep.
And this is Lynette. Could you send me to Alpha Phi, please?
Jay, do you need help there?
Yeah, can you put me in Delta Data? Thank you.
Ardith, you need to move in as well. I can't hear you, Ardith. Are you talking there? You're 80 pi, correct, Ardith? Just nod your head. Whiskey, stop.
This is Jenny. I'm also 80 pi.
Jenny for 80 pi. Awesome. Rachel, what part of chapter are you part of?
Can you send me to Delta Zeta, please?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then Debbie, which one? What are you here? Sorry. You're muted here. Can you unmute?
There we go. Alpha Phi.
Alpha Phi, perfect. I think I got you moved over.
Thank you.
Whew. I think that's everyone then. I think I think she had 2 on accident on there.
Yes, I believe so. And